Okay, so this is gonna go over transverse holds, or some call them vacuum. What do they call them? Abdominal vacuums. So, but I call them transverse holds. So first off, though, the transverse abdominis muscle, it's kind of like a brace. Like if you're wearing a lumbar support brace, it's like a brace around the whole abdomen. It's a deep muscle. It's a little thinner, but um, it helps stabilize the spine, helps keep the organs in, it helps prevent low back pain, improves posture. So like a lot of people always try to like extend the upper back, which is really good, and keep the shoulders open. But if you engage the transverse abdominis, it almost kind of like automatically brings you upright. So it's oftentimes like a foundational thing that's overlooked or forgotten, or just not enough importance placed upon it. So engaging the transverse abdominis is one of the most foundational things we can do for low back pain, or just general like posture and stability. When it's weak, a lot of times I'll see people come in where they're like, I don't know what happened. I was just picking up a sock or reaching to grab something. It was kind of maybe an awkward angle, a little bit of a twist. So it doesn't take much when there's instability, or something's guarded already in the lower back. And then just like a circuit trips, just a certain movement or reach or exertion, and it's done, and you're on the floor. Or, well, I see that with people, or just like some chronic achiness and discomfort, or I can't be upright for very long, whether it's sitting or standing for a while. So that's kind of the importance of the transverse abdominis. So I'm just showing the transverse hold right now, or the abdominal vacuum exercise. But there's other ones that we can look at: bracing, side planks, front planks, dead bugs, one called supine marching. But so first off, we look at active sitting. So you would sit on the edge of a chair without support, sitting upright, and trying to think of like a neutral pelvis, or where you're not like sitting too far forward or back. You're trying to keep your back fairly straight. And right on your sits bones, they call them your ischial tuberosities. It's the bones that you want to sit on. If you feel like your ribs are flaring out, that's where you kind of want to tuck in so that you're sitting more neutral. And then for active sitting, you can like roll each shoulder, and then just kind of let it relax so that your shoulders are down and not like hiked up to your ears. So you're kind of shaking it out that way. And then that's how you would sit for as long as you can until you start to feel fatigued. Then you can sit back and use, still sit straight up, but use support for your muscles if they start to get tired. You don't want to compensate and start sagging and that sort of thing. You might need a support, like a lumbar support, if you're gonna sit against the back as well, to keep your spine neutral. And then the transverse holds, you start with your active sitting, kind of shake things out, let the shoulders down, put a hand above and below your belly button. And for this, it's kind of like you're trying to, a lot of times we have a disconnect. So there's kind of a psychological aspect to this, where there's a disconnect between brain and body, where we may even feel like ashamed of this part of the body. It's a common societal message that like something ain't wrong here. So putting your hands here kind of brings a little attention to the area. It could, I was taught that it may even help direct blood flow to the area, or at least attention, we'll say. But it also kind of connects you with your breathing pattern. So with transverse holds, you're in the active sitting position, hands on your tummy, shoulders are down, and then you take a full belly breath. Just feel your belly rise and fall. I like to go in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then as you exhale is when we're gonna start to do the transverse hold. Exhaling is when you activate the transverse, not on inhaling. And there's some anatomy behind that, and how the lungs fill and the diaphragm raises to, or lowers to make room, so that actually when you inhale, the transverse doesn't engage. When you exhale is when the lungs deflate, the diaphragm can come back up, and then you can actually engage the transverse abdominis. So you exhale while you tuck the belly button in toward the spine. It's not the same as just tuck it in. As you exhale, tighten as far as you can toward the belly button and hold for a 10-second count. That can be difficult when you're trying to breathe. It might create a little bit of a shallow breathing in the chest. I'm still holding right now as I'm talking because I've practiced this, but initially it's okay if you feel like it's hard to hold my breath while I do this. So in, and we teach later where you actually slow your breath down through the teeth by making a shh sound. So kind of seems goofy. I don't do this in public. And then you're still holding. So it seems pretty simple. The hardest part is remembering to do it. And so coupling that with something you already do is helpful, like sitting in a stoplight. Well, you're probably not in an active sitting position for that, but as we graduate into other areas, you can do it. But remembering, like, every time you sit down for a meal would be a good time to do a transverse hold. If you can do 10 a day, 10-second holds, you can work up to 20 seconds or longer, but 10 a day is really good. And so you're engaging and bringing in that core. When the transverse activates, other abdominal core stabilizers also will activate with it. And in effect, they create like a natural sling where they will help to decompress or open up the low back, the disc spaces. It gives them some support and some shock absorption. Most people just don't activate it very often, and then they'll do some heavy lifting and end up even setting themselves up for injury. You might have some big bulky person who has a lot of strong primary movers, but the stabilizers and the smaller or important foundational muscles aren't doing their job. So you have an imbalance in what's working and what's not, and wonder why, how could I get injured when I can lift a fridge or whatever. So that's the transverse hold. And that's for week one. You would do all of those in the active sitting position and try to do 10 a day. Maybe on the hour you have a phone reminder or something, like, okay, I'm gonna sit and do my holds and activate that and connect with it in the first week. Second week, you'd start to build into everyday activities when you're in the bathroom. Again, like with every meal. Second week, then you start to look at, okay, how can I start to do this standing up? And the importance there is to elongate the spine and get the positioning to where if you picture like a bowl, the rib cage as a bowl and the pelvic girdle, the pelvic bowl is another bowl. You want them in alignment. And even when you're like moving or bending, if you can keep them in alignment, that's a more secure position. But especially in this exercise, so standing is a good time to do it. So like brushing your teeth in the shower, different times that you'd be doing that when you're driving. And then what else? Yeah, that's probably good for now. So yeah, try that.